Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
Check it out.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome into the amazing gallery bar booking games in Ocean Casino here in Atlantic City, and welcome into the Malamut Law pregame show ahead of Eagles Seahawks kicking off on Monday Night Football. And if you like storylines, oh man, we got a lot of them. Matt Patricia, now the defensive coordinator, but not the defensive coordinator, the play caller, the defensive play caller for the Philadelphia Eagles. Sean Desai out, at least to a different part of the football field, the booth maybe. And, of course, Matt Patricia taking over the play calling responsibilities on the field, pencil in ear and all, for this Philadelphia Eagles defense that has just been spanked over the last 2 weeks. The unfortunate part of all of that is also that the offense has come up very small in those games. So will there be more changes to come for the Eagles going forward? This 10-3 football team that has already clinched a third consecutive playoff berth. Wow, a lot to get into today. Here's one thing that we do know going into the game. It is yet to be officially official, but it does look like Jaylen Hurts, despite the fact that he was sick, still flying out to Seattle on a different plane than the rest of the team, will be up and active today. That'll be officially official in about 15 minutes there as we wait for the official inactives report. But welcome into the show. My name is Marc Farzetta. This is Bill Colarulo, of course, of Legal Hands to the Face podcast, as well as the Philly Sports Power Hour. And by now, a man that, of course, needs no introduction, the Eagles Hall of Famer himself, Mr. Seth Joyner. Seth, first and foremost, what kind of changes can we expect with Matt Patricia's defense now?
Well, I don't think we can expect much change. I mean, you're not going to change the style of defense that you play. I'm sure that Matt Patricia has been in these meeting rooms ever since training camp started. So it's highly likely, how he's going to affect the game is that the defense is going to look similar. I hope that they can execute a lot better than they've been executing. The other thing is, you may see a little more man coverage. You may see some variations in, how they play zone and how much zone they play. You may even see, some variations in early down run blitzes and different things of that nature. But at this point in time, you can't change a whole lot. This move, from what I get, and this was the key for me, the telltale sign was when Kevin Byard suggested earlier in the week that, the defensive backs be allowed to put together their own scouting report. I found that strange for two reasons. First of all, as a player, what you should be doing, like when I studied film, I had my week broken out. Now, the coach would give us the scouting report, and they would give us the data analytics. The crazy thing is they never really taught us how to read the data analytics, but you had it in a format where you could really understand it. But when I studied, I broke everything down by days, and I would chart everything, all the run plays and their tendencies, all the pass plays and their tendencies, all their short yardage and goal line plays and their tendencies. So the game plan was nothing more than a confirmation of the data analytics that I created through my study. Now, you give these players one of these now, all that information is on there for them, so they don't study that way anymore. They don't have to put pen to paper. And you only retain information, in my opinion, when you actually study it and you write it down yourself. But if you give it to me in this format, it's like watching a video. So all I'm doing is watching it, but I'm not necessarily retaining it. So when I saw that and their lack of confidence in the fact that, the scouting reporting that they was getting each week wasn't giving them the information that they needed, that was the first telltale sign that something was amiss. So when you look at this change, how much confidence are they going to have in Matt Patricia? How much confidence are they going to have in the insurance policy? And the Eagles are infamous for doing this. They always got a backup plan to the original plan just in case something goes sideways. You don't believe me? Go back and look at Doug Peterson. They hired Jim Schwartz before they even hired Doug Peterson. The head coach is usually the guy who hires his defensive coordinator. You can go way back. You had Todd Bowles sitting in the wings waiting for Juan Castillo to fall apart. He stepped in and took over. So when you consider the history of the Eagles and how they conduct business, this doesn't surprise me. What surprises me is the time of the year that they've decided to do it, because you can't just throw your whole defense out the window and implement a whole new defense. Who they are is who they are. The only thing that's going to change is how he calls defenses and how he, whether he decides to blitz more or whether he decides to implement run blitzes, whether he decides to play the cornerbacks more aggressive or more passive. So they are who they are at this point. The players have just got to execute what's being called.
Yeah, he's not going to hit a reset button right now, as I feel that the Eagles have hit a panic button on their defense. So, Bill, I'll ask you this question, and Seth, I'll ask you the same one in a second. Is this a panic move? Do you get the feeling this is a panic move by the Philadelphia Eagles, or a move that absolutely had to be done now?
I don't necessarily think it's a panic move. I think the problem is they lack the personnel on the defensive side of the ball. We've talked about it before. You can't blow up your entire roster this late in the season. Trade deadline's over. Any free agents that were available, they've already tried to get in Shaq Leonard, Zach Cunningham they got earlier in the season. They made the trade for Kevin Byard. This is who we have, unfortunately. I don't think the personnel is good enough. So I think the only option they had to try to fix something, to try to change something, is the defensive coordinator. What else could they do at this point in the season? So I don't think it was a panic move necessarily. We all have seen it. It's not only the last 2 games. It's been 13 games now where this defense has struggled. Outside of a few halves here or there, good half against the Dolphins, a good half against the Rams, they let Mac Jones throw for 300 yards the first game of the season. So we kept saying, oh, well, they keep winning, they keep winning. The defensive personnel is not good enough. And that is Howie Roseman, not Sean Desai. Not that Desai was doing a great job. I don't think he was. But I think the problems we see on the defensive side of the ball is because there is a severe lack of young talent outside of the D-tackle position that are still contributing on their rookie deals.
Gotcha.
Well, Bill, a lot of situations, the players are like pieces on a chessboard. You've got to put them in position to be successful. When I see a move like this being made, then the question always comes to my mind, and I think we know the answer just based upon how it all came about. Nick Sirianni was asked earlier in the week about changes to his staff, and it was an emphatic no. Okay, so in my mind, that's almost like, Pinocchio pointing out to everybody, you got potential and you got potential. At some point in time, it's one or two things happen, because they didn't just make this decision and make this move at the end of the week. Either Nick Sirianni knew that this was going to happen or had already happened internally, or later in the week, somebody made a decision from upstairs to make this move, So the problem that I have with it is the message that's sent to your players. Because if Kevin Byard's, ask had something to do with it, if the players were truly, in a position where they lost confidence in Sean Desai, how does that filter to everybody else? Because ultimately, yes, the coaches have to put them in better positions to execute, but they haven't executed at all, and statistically, not only on the defensive side of the ball, this football team has gotten worse and worse all season long. I mean, I chart the stats every single week. So when I take this page and I fold it over and I look at us offensively, we've dropped in points per game from last week to this week. We've dropped in yards per game. Well, we dropped in points per game, yards per game. We dropped in third down conversions. We've dropped in red zone. We've dropped in rush yards. We've dropped in pass yards, So it's not just the defense. It's the entire team is not playing up to the level that it needs to play to. Yes, the coaches bear some responsibility in that, but also it's up to the players, to make bad calls and calls that seem like they won't work with your hustle, your intensity, and your want to.
I'm going to ask you real quick about the panic move of it all, but we're going to talk to our friend Adam Malamut here, who is joining us remotely. Adam, we appreciate you taking time. You're in your Sprinter van right now. This thing is absolutely incredible. That if you can show us a little bit of the van, and then obviously give us your gut feeling about tonight's matchup. We may have him muted, or we are having an audio problem. But I like you in front of you on your screen. This is all the Malamut I can handle right there. We're going to try to check back with you in just a second, Adam. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back in 1 minute. But, Seth, do you feel that it is a panic move making this decision, or is this absolutely justified?
Well,
a need, if you will.
I think it's a panic move just because of when it happened.
4 games left in the season.
When it happened.
Yeah.
Because the question is, how much of a difference is Matt Patricia going to be able to make, in 1 week's time? I don't think it's a panic move because, at the other end of the spectrum, because when you look at them statistically, they can't get any worse than they already are. So it's almost like you have to do something. And if you get the sense in some way, some fashion, that your players don't believe in or they're not buying into what the defensive coordinator is selling, then you absolutely have to make a move.
Gotcha. Bill, what was your reaction to it? Because I know we have talked, as you alluded to earlier, we've talked about the talent versus the coaching here. And all of a sudden, I don't see guys like Josh Sweat as a bad football player. I still think he's a good football player. I don't think he's being coached well. Hassan Reddick seems to be, no matter what system he's in, who his defensive coordinator is, he's going to get to the quarterback. He understands his responsibility. But when you talk about everybody else, everything else has looked very much off kilter under Sean Desai.
They still have talent on the defensive side of the ball in areas. The problem is they just don't have enough. And you look at the defensive line, Josh Sweat, very good player. Hassan Reddick, very good player. These guys are going to break career highs in snaps. I think Josh Sweat already has. So they're not as deep on the edge as we thought they would be, mainly because Derek Barnett was brought back. He's given us nothing. He's not even on the team anymore. Nolan Smith, drafted in the first round, hasn't really contributed. So I've been saying all along, I don't think it was all Sean Desai, but like I said, my initial reaction was, okay, at least they're trying something. Because like Seth said, it can't get much worse. And what I was hoping was, use a hockey analogy, you guys know I like my NHL, is sometimes you change the head coach and that can spark a team. They play with a little bit more aggression. They play with a little bit more desire. And how many missed tackles have we seen on the defensive side of the ball? Hopefully this is a little bit of a wake-up call for that defense to say, hey, look, we got to play harder. Seth said tackling is an attitude. Well, maybe they come out with a little more attitude now that there's been this change made.
We're going to go one more time to our friend Adam Malamut here, who is always bringing the attitude. Adam, first up, this is your Sprinter van, correct? This is what you buzz around the nation in?
Come on, man. It's Malamut 1.
Malamut 1. I absolutely love it. And where is Malamut 1 right now?
Oh, I can't tell you. I'd have to kill you.
You're in the Bat Cave. This is your Malamut 1 mobile.
I'm on my way to a special family event. And,
nice.
I never miss a family event, but
sure.
I never want to miss our show. So, I miss being there with you guys. I'm kind of jealous because Bill gets to sit next to Seth, who's wearing this sharp suit tonight. Forget Dallas being America's team. Seth is America's broadcaster tonight. I love it, Seth.
Adam, what was your reaction to the Sean Desai news and moving Matt Patricia into quote-unquote defensive play caller?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. I think that, and I heard what Bill had to say and I heard what Seth had to say. I think that players respond to different voices at different times. And clearly, although we don't have linebackers, although our defensive secondary was not playing the way we expected them to play this season, sometimes you just need to hear it and you need to be motivated by somebody else. I'll tell you, my elf on a shelf would have been more motivating than what we saw out of this talented group, at least in the front, right? So our guys up front aren't getting any pressure. They're not getting to the quarterback like we expected them to. We didn't expect last season's stats, but we expected them to touch quarterbacks. We expected them to knock some people down. That hasn't been happening. My hope is that they respond to Matt Patricia differently than how they've responded so far to Sean Desai. And I'm not joking about the elf on the shelf. He's kind of tough.
Adam, you guys know I'm old school. We talk about motivation like players need to get it from somewhere else. A lot of these guys are going to the window and pulling down $1 million, $2 million, $500,000, $250,000 every single week. If that's not part of your motivation, the other part is the motivation to be great at what you do. Now, this team went to the Super Bowl and came within 3 points of winning last year. Their battle cry in training camp was to get back to the Super Bowl and finish the job. Now, you tell me, why is it that a coach would have to motivate you if that is your end goal? the older players on this football team, the veterans, the leaders of this football team, I'm sure they've chided, the young guys and the guys who haven't been in this position before, to come on, guys, let's get it done. This is what – but you know what? You went from being solidified in the number one seed of the conference, and your division to falling down in back-to-back weeks, understanding how important, winning those 2 games were. As a player, if you can't motivate yourself, how much do we expect for Nick Sirianni or Sean Desai or Brian Johnson or Matt Patricia, for that matter, to motivate players to go and do what they say that they love to do and what they're being paid a king's ransom to play for?
Seth, I have a great answer for you. I'd like to start with Dallas sucks. Now, the second part of my answer is, Seth, you're imposing on these young guys, and you and I have had these conversations, these young guys who don't value like players from your era, not to date you and not that you're that old, but players in your era really had to work. They had a different appreciation for the game. You're imposing on them the same set of values that you had. There were players when you played that didn't value it as much. There were players that spent their paychecks and would, race to get to the beginning of the season so they can get their checks again. These guys they don't all have the same values. They don't all have the same work ethic. A lot of these guys think that the toughest thing to do is to get to the league. They don't realize that the toughest thing to do is to stay in the league. So when you talk about the veterans and the guys up front and the guys on the other side of the line that really do work, those guys, I believe, share those values. But there are a certain sect of folks, and I'm not going to start naming people, but there's a sect of folks that certainly don't have those values. I know that our viewers, and I've watched the chat on our shows, these aren't people that are making millions of dollars a year, but I guarantee you that every single one of our viewers, if they had the incentive of going out and making, $500,000 to $1 million paychecks per week to show up for work, they'd show up and they would grind. They would crank it out. These guys, and I'm going to call them kids because, I'm in your generation, Seth. They're not motivated like that. It's not, it's, hey, I've made it, I've arrived, I've gotten to the league. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys are the same people that, won't benefit from the financial literacy programs that are provided by the NFL Players Association and a lot of the other things that, the mentors around them, they won't learn from people's mistakes. They've got to make their own, and they're making mistakes by underestimating opponents that they should be beating week after week.
Adam, I know you got to get running, man, so I got to get your prediction. Eagles, Seahawks, Monday Night Football, what do you got?
So I missed it. Is Geno Smith playing or not playing?
He is up playing today, and so is Jaylen Hurts, both active today.
Well, I know Jaylen's playing because Jaylen's a winner. So I'm going to tell you that I think that this team comes out with something to prove. I think that defensively they crush the Seahawks. I think it's going to be 28-7.
28-7. God, I hope you're right. From Malamut 1.
And you're welcome. You can bet that if you want.
Oh, I'm gonna walk right over to the window. It's right over there. I'm gonna take care of that right now.
It's right there. Take care of that.
Oh, well, when we go to break. Adam, thanks so much. From Malamut 1, Adam Malamut joining us here on the Malamut Pregame Show.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Adam Malamut, joy. Malamut Law at a family undisclosed location other than Malamut 1. Sprinter vans are pretty cool, and he looks like he's enjoying the hell out of that, as he should be. So we've been talking a lot about Matt Patricia. There's another storyline that gets involved here, and yes, by the way, the inactives did officially come out. Officially official now. Jaylen Hurts is up and active today. He'll be starting under center for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Geno Smith is also active today, despite the groin injury, and he'll be starting for the Seattle Seahawks tonight with their 8:15 kickoff. Some other inactives, as we know. Darius Slay, we'll get to him. Some more news about him throughout the week. We'll get to that. Keely Ringo will be getting the start at corner for the Eagles. Cam Jurgens down today. That was a question going into the game. Sui Opeta is getting the start today, and Zach Cunningham officially being out, as we knew going into the game with his knee injury. Shaq Leonard will now get his first start as a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. So piecemealing this together quite literally when it comes to some of these players, and it also comes to the man that will be calling the plays defensively in Matt Patricia. Seth, I have to ask you this question. A couple of things surrounding Darius Slay in all of this. One is the surgery. Having the surgery now, basically his knee being scoped at this point in the year, said he will be back. Again, 4 games left in the season, choosing to have that now. The other storyline attached to this is the history there with Matt Patricia, and oh my goodness, if you have forgotten it, it's juicy. When you look at this history now, is it because Matt Patricia is now the de facto defensive coordinator that Darius Slay chose to have this surgery? Do you buy in to that storyline?
No, I'm not so sure that, that's the case. Slay's been under a lot of heat the last 2 or 3 weeks for comments that he's made and some things that he said. It really took me aback what he said this week about the fact that, he thought he played well, but the rest of the team, pretty much stunk. Dude, you're wearing the C on your jersey. You're a captain. How could you be so unaware of the circumstances and the situation as to make a statement like that? Your defense that you're a part of gave up 37.5 points per game over the last 2 games on average. And no one plays well or no one has played good, in that scenario. So I don't know. It doesn't really concern me, whether he actually decided to get the surgery because Matt Patricia was now the guy up or not. What concerns me is the optics of, some of the things that he says and how he acts when it comes to, being a captain on this football team, because that's not the type of leadership, during tough and hard times that you need. You need your leaders to be leaders. You need guys like Fletcher Cox who stood up and said, hey, none of us played well. We're going to find out what we're all about. Not trying to separate yourself and say, well, you know what? I played well. I don't know about everybody else. Because as long as you got the green on, whatever's on that field is reflective of you. I talked about it all the time because I've been on good teams and I've been on bad teams. And one thing that's prevalent with bad teams is players on that team trying to separate themselves from the L's, trying to make themselves look like, they're more important or they've done more, throughout the course, because that's the only thing they have to hang their hats on. Now, this football team is 10-3. Not by any stretch of the imagination are they a team in a losing mode. But when those kinds of attitudes begin to permeate your team, that's not good for your team. And to be honest with you, I'm happy to see, Keely Ringo getting a start tonight. I hope he locks it, tears it up and plays so well they have a hard time taking him off the field.
I hope so as well. Bill, what is your take on it as to why Darius Slay had this surgery now?
I don't think it had anything to do with Matt Patricia. As much as I agree with Seth, I don't love the way Darius Slay finds the need to respond to everything. I mean, hey, it's great for us. He wants to respond to everything we say. But it's even after he responds to Seth, and there was that whole battle, he's retweeting people, Dan Sileo. He's retweeting.
Yeah, Sil's got into it. You were telling, yeah.
Retweeting WIP today. It's, Slay, we get it, man. You think you've played well, but I think he just needs to stop. And someone in the organization, whether it's Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, someone needs to go to him and say, listen, you need to be a team guy here. And he's not wrong. If you look at the numbers, Slay hasn't played horribly this season.
And he's been their best corner.
He probably gets a little bit more heat than he deserves at times.
It's not about that.
Exactly.
No, I understand what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not about that.
It's not about that. That's what I mean. It's not that he's wrong, but he shouldn't be saying it when you get dominated. And then he followed it up, Seth. He goes, I played great, but the rest of the team played ass, is what I think he said. Something like that.
Well, I don't think he was, in all honesty, yes, he excluded himself by talking about how great he was, but I don't think he was saying it was separate. But he said, as a team, we played like ass.
Yeah.
So he wasn't like excluding himself from that, but he was highlighting
how good he played.
his own greatness.
Which I completely disagree that he does that, especially as a captain. But this isn't the first time we've seen it, Seth. You remember on Christmas Day last year, they gave up that long pass play on that 3rd and long against the Dallas Cowboys when they were up. And Darius Slay made sure everybody knew that wasn't him getting beat. That was the other guy didn't have his job. I think it was Josiah Scott. Mm-hmm. And he made a comment immediately in the locker room that Scott blew the coverage. That's not something I think a captain should do.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that.
Well, and it's just you got to take the temperature of the environment that you're in. I just, to me, nobody gives a damn about, how players play individually. I think, the PFF grades that come out every week are one of the most detrimental things because people like to run to that like that's the gospel, so to speak. And nobody really cares because at the end of the day, are you playing for yourself? Are you playing for the best grade that you can have? Is he positioning himself because he realized that potentially this could be his last year in an Eagles uniform, and he needs to begin to position himself for where he may end up next year if he decides to continue to play. I don't know what it is, but this isn't a team thing, that he's got going on. This whole podcast that he's got going on, this whole thing about himself, him wanting to talk about himself. And people are like, oh, I have no problem with Darius Slay defending himself. Why? Why do you have rabbit ears? The same way that you have a job to play football, I'm sitting at this desk because I got a job to analyze the game of football for the Philadelphia Eagles and analyze what they do, okay? I can't change the way he plays any more than he can change the words that are going to come out of my mouth as I analyze the game according to how I see the game. So why would you even care? You don't have to go out and explain to the world, that you're the best thing since sliced bread. You're on a team that hasn't played well. I think it's 105 points that they've given up over the last 3 games, okay? Your name is attached to that just as much as anybody else on that defense or any other coach on that side of the coaching staff. You understand what I'm saying? So you trying to distance yourself from that by talking about how well you played is a misnomer, because you know what? When we talk about the defense as a whole, you're a part of that.
Let me ask you this question then, because I know we can't expect a whole change of this defense from just one, essentially yesterday. You have Matt Patricia being named your play caller on the defensive side of the football here. But what is something that you do expect or would really like to see? You could walk away from this. Let's say it's a close game, the Eagles win the game, the defense doesn't get blown out. But let's just say after this game, the Eagles walk away with a win. The defense has done what? A little bit differently to make you happy. Bill, I'll start with you.
I'd just like to see them be more aggressive across the board. And I don't necessarily mean by blitzing. I just mean more aggressive in, yes, getting after the quarterback, whether that's with their front four, whether they do bring some more blitzes. I want to see them be more aggressive with their coverages, getting these wide receivers' face a little bit. Keely Ringo is a big guy. I'd like to see him play well and play physical. Not going to be easy going up against DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. These guys are good wide receivers, but I'd like to see that. But I really want to see them just tackle better and attack the football better. They're 20th in the league in takeaways. They've struggled all season in taking the ball away. I'd like to see that a part of their game as well. Let's try to create some turnovers. Let's be good tacklers, and let's just be overall more aggressive in this football game. That's what I'd like to see.
Seth, what do you need to see in order to walk away from this game and go, okay, there's a little hope here with Matt Patricia making the play calls?
A lot of those things, that Bill just espoused, are the same with me. The cornerbacks need to get up and challenge people at the line of scrimmage. You need to be a lot more aggressive, especially on first down. I can assure you with those 2 running backs, with Walker and Carbonet, they're going to come out and they're going to try to pound the football. The Eagles, have precipitously fell, in their run defense. I think they're giving up 163 yards per game over the last 3 or 4 games. So they're going to test the defense and find out whether they can stand up and whether they can stop the run. Be more aggressive on first and second down. Show me some creativity in your blitzes besides just sending Nicholas Morrow running up the middle and having an offensive lineman hit him in the chest. Show me something. Show me something. Show them something. Everyone's so afraid of blitzing. But my thing is, okay, you got Geno Smith that's playing tonight. He's up. He's obviously not going to be mobile. He's going to be looking to get that ball out of his hands pretty quick. So if you're playing off the ball 10 yards, he is going to take what the defense gives him. So you're going to have to get up and challenge the wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. You're going to have to come with some blitzes to put some pressure on him. You know he can't move. You know he can't get away. And have a sense of urgency. The Cowboys did what the Cowboys do, okay? They fell down yesterday. They gave us the lead in the division back. Now all we've got to do is go in and do what we have to do our part, okay? That requires a greater sense of urgency than what we've seen over the last 2 weeks. This game is a must-win game for them, and they've got to play like, you know what, if we don't win, they can't look at yesterday and realize that because the San Francisco 49ers won yesterday, that gave them an automatic bid, into the playoffs, that they got an automatic spot. They need to play this game like their playoff life depends on it. Like, you know what, we're not going to make the playoffs if we don't win this game. A greater sense of urgency, a greater level of intensity, because I can promise you the Seattle Seahawks are going to come out. They've lost, 4 or 5 games in a row. They know that they have to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. They're going to come out swinging with their hair on fire, and if the Eagles don't respond to it early, then they're going to be another one of these games where they're going to have to fight to the end.
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping in a game like this, Geno Smith with his groin injury is a pork chop in a lion's den for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's, you talk about aggression, both of you, not just in getting after the quarterback, but sure, and maybe not allowing that much cushion with the wide receiver being aggressive. That's what I'm hoping to see from this football team tonight.
One more small tidbit. One of the things that got Matt Patricia, in trouble in Detroit defensively is that he likes to play a lot of cover one. He likes to play a lot of man-to-man. And when people said that he should temper it, he doubled down, and it didn't go well. So he's going to have to monitor that, somewhat. There's a great balance in everything. I don't care whether you're talking about playing man or whether you're talking about playing zone or whether you're talking about pressures, 5-man pressures, or whether you're talking about all-out blitzing or blitzing, okay? There's a balance to that has to happen. And he's got to know when to go, when not to go, when to play it safe, and when to be more aggressive. And if you can get a good mixture of that, now we can keep our defenses, or offenses, out of balance. We became so predictable in just being soft and passive that defenses could take advantage of everything that we were trying to do defensively.
One thing that we will get into is a positive note. Again, Jaylen Hurts is up, is active, and will be starting despite the illness and flying out to Seattle. So he'll be getting the start tonight, and we'll break that down and what his presence, of course, means to this offense. And with all the headlines surrounding the defense, we need to really analyze what's been going on with this offense and why that has been sputtering down the stretch. We'll be back in a moment here on the Malamut Law pregame show.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Chicken wings, buy Hooters things. Christmas is near. Shop, have a beer. Christmas shopping shouldn't be hard. Give your friends a Hooters gift card.
This year, stuff their stockings and yours too with a one-size-fits-all gift card. Buy a $25 Hooters gift card and receive a $5 Santa's bonus card. Make it Hooters for the holidays.
Eat chicken wings, buy Hooters things. Christmas is near. Gift cards are here. Good at Hooters everywhere now. Hooters gifts are always favored.
And good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back to the Malamut Law pregame show. John McMullen will be joining us momentarily to walk us through all the pregame activity going on in Seattle. John will be joining us to break it all down for us. A little bit of breaking news here. We originally announced via a report that we saw from Jeff McClain that Geno Smith was active tonight and starting. Geno Smith is active tonight, but not officially the starter just yet. But here's what we do know. Jaylen Hurts, active tonight and will be the Eagles' starter. As much of the headlines this year and this past week has really surrounded what the defense has done, the offense has left a lot to be desired as well. When you talk about the offense not being able to get in the end zone against the Dallas Cowboys, and yet the defense was able to on that fumble return for a touchdown by Jalen Carter. What can we expect from this offense in order to get that started? Because one of the things that you alluded to earlier, Seth, was the idea that Nick Sirianni, he was asked in his first question of his press conference coming off that Dallas game, whether or not he anticipated any changes to the coaching staff, particularly when it came to offensive play calling, because that has definitely hit a brick wall as of late. What do you need to see from this defense now that, or excuse me, this offense, now that you know Jalen Hurts is going to be up and running today for the Eagles?
So I put up a tweet yesterday. Let me find it for you right quick, because it speaks to, in totality, what this offense really needs to look like. Okay, so during the Bills game, I said the Buffalo Bills are running the ball down the throats of the Dallas Cowboys. Don't tell me it's a passing league 100%. So I'm not saying that you don't need to throw the ball in order to win, but yeah, you need to. I said the Bills committed to running the ball. They're dominating and demoralizing one of the best defenses in the National Football League. So miss me with the analytics BS. You have to pass to win. No, this is the time of the year where you have to run the ball. It's raining again. The Eagles have got another cold, rainy game in Seattle, okay? Run the damn football, okay? Run the ball. The teams who are having success late in the year, they run the ball. You can throw it all over the map all you want to, but if you can dominate the line of scrimmage by running the football and then go play action pass off of it, if Josh Allen can only complete 7 passes in the game and they win the game, come on, man. Come on. Now, I'm not saying that they got to live like this. There are games that they're going to play in where they're going to need to throw the football. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? But you adjust to the game the way that you need to adjust to the game. Don't be stubborn and come out here and try to throw it all over the 26th ranked, pass defense just because they're 26th ranked. Guess what? They're 23rd ranked against the run. Okay? Establish your running game. Let your offensive line get in a dominant posture. Okay? Start converting some third downs so you put your defense in a position where they can be rested throughout the game. The blueprint, I don't care how much the game changes. The blueprint, when the rubber really meets the road, every single struggling offense. The Eagles got healthy when early in the season they couldn't get their run game, their pass game on track. They went to the run game, 2 games back to back, 40+ carries, almost 230-something yards rushing. Okay, you look at the Buffalo Bills. Fired their offensive coordinator, was running their offense and their defense in the ground. Brought in a guy, now all of a sudden they're running the football, they're on track. They look like a dangerous team if they can figure out a way to get into the playoffs after going into yesterday's contest 11th in the AFC. So the run game is still prevalent, and people can continue to talk about how it's not, but each and every week I'm watching teams successfully run the ball. The Baltimore Ravens, successful because what? They run the football. The San Francisco 49ers, successful. Why? Because they run the football. The Miami Dolphins, all the high-flying Waddle, Tyreek Hill, they got 2 running backs that are probably both going to rush for 1,000 yards this year, and one of their running backs got 20 touchdowns. 20, okay? So don't tell me, miss me with the whole you got to throw the ball in order to win. No, you don't. Because if you can dominate the line of scrimmage and you can stop the run on the defensive side of the ball, then you can dominate and you can control the game of football still.
No, I'm with you 1,000%. Jalen Hurts coming back. Obviously, the run game today would greatly help him, Bill. Not having to do a lot. Maybe, hand the ball off to a running back every once in a while. Maybe a little check down to a running back, even on a target there in a passing situation. What can you expect from the Eagles offense tonight?
I agree with Seth. We've been asking for it almost every single week for them to run the football. And let's be honest here. The Seahawks defense stinks. They are not the Legion of Boom that we are used to seeing under Pete Carroll. They're not very good. They're going to be without a couple of key players on the defensive side of the football. And I want to see not only this Eagles offense run the ball, I want to see that they can still run the football. Because you look at week 2 and week 3. They averaged 198 yards in those games and 6 yards a carry. In the last 10 games, the running backs are only averaging 69 yards a game and 3.86 yards a carry. I need to see that this Eagles offense can establish the run. Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni need to do them some favors. They got to give them an opportunity to get into a rhythm. But Seth's right. You look at what the Buffalo Bills did to the Dallas Cowboys. As nice as that was to watch, seeing the Dallas Cowboys lose, I was so damn frustrated because we all sat up here before that game saying, hey, Eagles, establish the run today. And you saw the Buffalo Bills take the game plan we were all calling for and run it down Micah Parsons and the Cowboys' throat. I want to see the Eagles do that tonight against a bad defense. Let your offense get into a rhythm. Show us that you can run the ball. One more thing, Farzy. The RPO. A lot of people are wondering, where did the RPO go? So I went back and looked at the numbers on the RPO. Through 15 games last year is what Jaylen Hurts played. They had 148 RPO calls. The year before that, 154. This year they're on pace in 15 games to do only 99, so it has dropped. But what I found interesting was if you look at the average yards per play, RPO's not working this year. Defenses are taking it away. They average 7.8 yards a play on the RPO. This year, only 4.8. And running the ball, only 2.8 yards per play on the RPO when they run it. So that's why I think the running game has struggled a little bit. They've gotten away from the RPO, but even when they've been there, it's not working as effectively. So show me tonight that you're able to run the football effectively, even without the run-pass option. Because we talked about it before on this show. When you do that run-pass option, sometimes Jaylen has to pull it. Sometimes he has to throw it. Let's just go to the good old-fashioned give our running backs the damn football. Give DeAndre Swift an opportunity to get into a rhythm. I wish Rashad Penny was active tonight. He's not, which surprises me again.
Yeah.
But just give the running backs the ball. Some old-fashioned football, bad weather. It's not rocket science. Look at what the Bills did, and let's try to duplicate that against a really bad defense.
All right, we're going to go to our NFL insider now. John McMullen will be joining us later, actually, not now. So we'll get into that in just a minute. But it's an interesting thing when you talk about players that are going to be down for Seattle. And just to give some people some numbers right now in the Seattle Seahawks defense, these numbers are insane. The Eagles have obviously struggled all year, as we have highlighted. Sean Desai no longer the defensive play caller here. Eagles are 29th in yards allowed via the pass. The Seattle Seahawks are 26th. It's only separated by 3 right there. Points per game, Eagles are ranked 28th in the NFL. Seahawks are ranked 25th. So neither defense comes into here exactly hot going into this matchup. Also, Devin Witherspoon out for tonight's game. Jamal Adams out for tonight's game. So you look at that Seattle Seahawks defense, and they're going to be without an already tough and roughed-up defense, now going to be missing some of their more marquee and talented players. Seth, when you look at this defense for the Seattle Seahawks, other than wanting to see more of a run game established by the Eagles, what do you want to see from them offensively speaking to attack and exploit from that weak Seattle defense?
I think that I think A.J. Brown can have a big day against, they got a rookie starting cornerback, tall kid, long legs, starting and stopping, is a problem for really tall cornerbacks, in my opinion. Dallas Goedert should have a big day. I was hoping that Jamal Adams would be up because a lot of times he is, their guy that covers tight ends, and he can't cover a tight end if you gave him a blanket, and asked him to throw it over him, and he was in his stance. So, you want to take advantage of those matchups, and Farzy, I'm talking about the pass game. Okay, now I want to see him run the ball,
right?
But I'm not saying that you're going to go out and run the ball like Buffalo did yesterday and only throw the ball, 9 times.
Yeah, you're not saying ignore A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Because what the run game is going to do for them is it's going to set up A.J. Brown to be able to have a big night. It's going to help, Devontae Smith have a big night. It's going to allow for Dallas Goedert to really become a focal point in the offense because they can't cover. They really can't. But if you put yourself in a situation where you're just going to throw the ball every down, now the defensive linemen are just going to rush the passer. And now you put your offensive line in a situation where they got to kick. They're always in retreat. Let them dominate up front. And then once you get that established, now you can go to the passing game. You can get whatever you want in the passing game. But they cannot – you can't go and play a team that's ranked this bad. I mean, you gave some numbers. They're 23rd against the rush. They're 26th against the pass. They're 26th in the red zone. They're 30th in the red zone. This defense is almost as bad statistically, as the Eagles are. So what is your game plan tonight going to look like to take advantage of that? Are you going to come in with the same game plan that you've implemented the last 2 weeks that has surrendered little or nothing? Or are you going to go back and lean on the thing that you know that you can do well when you've committed to doing it, and that's run the football so it opens up the rest of your offense? I'd love to see him in some 12 personnel tonight. Let's just dominate the line of scrimmage, get the 2 tight ends together on one side, run that way. If they want to overload that way, let's run the counter OT back to the weak side. Let's do some things to really make the defensive coordinator and those players think. And then once you get them thinking, now let's have some plays, some pass plays that set up off of that, the play passes that allow you to take your shots. And I'm not talking about taking the shots down the field. I'm talking about taking what the defense will give you, okay? And then once you have a lead or once you have control of the football game, now you can take your shots down the field because guess what? You've earned the right to do that. Teams aren't going to they're going to sit in too high and they're going to make you, throw the ball underneath. So take what they're giving you. Let's move the chains and possess the football until you get enough of a lead that you force them into single high or you force them into zero. Now you can go max protect and take your shots down the field with your receiver 1 and receiver 1A.
I'm absolutely with you on that. Now we're going to go to our friend John McMullen, our NFL insider, also co-host of Birds 365, along with our friend Jody McDonald. John McMullen joining us now. John, when it does come to Matt Patricia being the new defensive play caller of the Philadelphia Eagles, what are realistic expectations for changes being made on the defensive side of the football?
Not very realistic. I mean, I think if you talk about having 3 days to work, and let's make no mistake about it, the Eagles didn't make this decision on Sunday. When they shifted from a walkthrough in hindsight to a full practice on Thursday, that's an indication the decision was made. I don't like it in week 15. I don't know how much you can accomplish in week 15. Maybe Matt Patricia has a better feel for third downs. Nick Sirianni's obsessed with situational football. And, I heard you guys talking about these are 2 of the worst third down defenses in the NFL. So from the Eagles' perspective, they just want an incremental improvement, and that's going to be difficult. I mean, Darius Slay not playing today, Zach Cunningham not playing today, so you have injuries on top of it. Not a great past couple of days for the Philadelphia Eagles.
What's up, John? Let's talk about rookie Kelee Ringo. Obviously, the Eagles really liked him. They traded away a third-round draft pick to move up in the 4th round to get him. Everything I read about him, everything I watched was he has a lot of athleticism. He's big. He can compete with the bigger body wide receivers, which they're going to need tonight, but that he was really raw. He's still really young. What do you expect to see from him tonight going against some good wide receivers in DK, Tyler Lockett, and even rookie Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's looked pretty good this season?
Yeah, that's the strength of the Seahawks. You look at their receivers, and it looks like Geno Smith is going to give it a go. We'll see how that works out, but that'll make things a little bit more difficult. But, yeah, I mean, Kelee Ringo had fallen behind Josh Jobe, and then it was Eli Ricks, and now all of a sudden – the Eagles kind of came to the conclusion that they needed more athleticism on the back end, which I agree with. Ringo's their most athletic corner. As you mentioned, that size-speed ratio is off the charts, but he's very, very raw. Same thing with Sidney Brown at safety, sort of the same physical makeup, tremendous athlete, maybe a little bit too raw to play. I argue the Eagles should have got these guys involved a little bit earlier, thrown them into the deep end of the pool. Who knows where you'd be at this point? Now you got to cross your fingers and hope Ringo's going to hold up against, as you mentioned, some really good receivers, and specifically DK Metcalf, who likes to take shots at the Eagles because they were one of the teams that he felt should have taken him back in the draft, so he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles had red flagged him, so it was a medical red flag, and they weren't the only team. So a bunch of teams got DK wrong, but, as Nick Sirianni says, motivation, if it helps you use it, DK has used it against the Philadelphia Eagles.
John, I agree with you 100%. I would have loved to have seen the Eagles, sign back C.J. Gardner-Johnson and make a choice between either Slay or Bradbury instead of bringing them both back, and using either 1B or the second-round pick on one of these young cornerbacks and getting younger at that position rather than enough, or can they get out of their way enough to look at that blueprint and say that we can use that against the 23rd ranked run defense tonight and dominate this football game? Or do you get the sense they feel like, our offense is our offense and we're going to run it the way that we need to run it?
Well, typically, the Eagles are the Eagles, and they, kind of run their offense the way they want to run it. They have that kind of confidence. Now, we'll see how much that's been shaken over the past couple of weeks. We'll see how much that's been shaken by Jaylen Hurts' illness. Maybe that factors in. But no, I don't think you can look at Buffalo and Dallas and say, okay, that's the template for every specific team struggling against the run. The Cowboys specifically are very light. They play essentially safeties at linebacker, and Buffalo was able to take advantage of that in an outdoor environment. You look at Seattle, and even though they've struggled, you got Bobby Wagner, who's going to be a Hall of Fame linebacker right in the middle of that defense. So it's not like they have Jordan Brooks. It's not like they're not playing linebackers where the Cowboys, other teams that use that big nickel, Minnesota with Brian Flores would be one of them. They use those types of players. And I've been waiting for teams to say, hey, you know what? They got all these light bodies. And the Eagles did that against Minnesota in week 2, if you think back to that game. But that's not what Seattle presents. Now, they don't defend the run well. They don't do a lot of things well. But, the one thing Bobby Wagner can do at this stage of his career, and he's 33, 34, so he's not what he once was when he was the best linebacker in football. But, if you're going to line up and just run the football at him, you're playing into his hands. You want to take advantage of that lack of athleticism more than just, saying, okay, Marquise Bell, Dallas Cowboys. Completely different player.
John, when it comes...
Oh, Lord. The Eagles going to throw it 40 times tonight.
Run it effectively. Run it effectively is what the Eagles want to do. When they do run it, they need to run it effectively, and it can't be, 1st and 10 can't turn into 2nd and 9. 2nd and 9 can't turn into 3rd and 8. So when they do, even if it's 3 or 4 opportunities here and there, if they're effective, all of a sudden that 3 or 4 will turn into 6 or 8, turn into 10, 16, 20. And if they have a 2-score lead in the 4th quarter, you're going to be very happy with the run-pass ratio.
John, when we look at Jaylen Hurts, obviously he's up, he's active, he's starting tonight, but you never want to see your quarterback for any reason show up on the injury report as he did with the illness that he had and still flew out to Seattle, albeit on a different plane than the rest of the Eagles team. What do you know about Jaylen Hurts going into this? How close to 100% is he? Because we're looking at Geno Smith right now. Give it a go. While Jaylen Hurts is going out there and making the start, how close to 100% is he?
Well, I was told that he would not be 100%. So, he's got flu-like symptoms. He doesn't have the flu. So I don't know if Dr. Bruce is there, but you can ask him about what's going around. It seems like everybody's sick. It was pretty significant to the fact that they were concerned. Obviously, they didn't want him to travel with others, but it's gotten better. When he got on the plane to go to Seattle, you got the feeling he was going to try to play because you're not going to make that trip if you're not going to try to play. So we'll just have to see how healthy he is. And, everybody brings up the Michael Jordan flu game. If Jaylen has a big game, people will be talking about that. But it's something that happens, unfortunately, and a lot of guys play through sickness, and Jaylen's going to be one of them. We'll see how effective he is.
I've been there before, so I know.
Yeah.
It might be one of those. I look for Jaylen to have a hell of a game tonight, because when you get sick like that, John, what winds up happening is your mind just kind of shuts down and you're playing on automatic. And when you're playing that way, there's not a whole lot of thought that goes into it. You know you're sick. Your energy stores are down. You're trying to conserve energy, in between plays. So you get to play, and you know what you're supposed to do. The hair's already in the barn. He practiced all week until Saturday. Am I correct?
Yeah. He practiced all week and then sat out Saturday.
Yeah. So the hair's in the barn. What better way, to go into a game where all you got to do is just put it on automatic. You know what to do. You've already put you've already put the information into the computer. It's in the database. Just shut it down and put it on automatic and believe what you see and go play.
Yeah, and that's what I think he'll do, and we'll see. I mean, you never know how these things go. It does, a lot of people are able to focus, as Seth says, and maybe even it helps a little bit from a standpoint of you got to be more focused to make up for some of the deficiencies. So that's one of those where you got to wait and see. And there's a lot, I feel like because of what happened with Sean Desai and Matt Patricia, I feel like all the injuries got kind of masked over this week. And Jalen's not an injury, but I put him in that category with the illness. But you're not going to have Slay. You're not going to have Cam Jurgens. You're not going to have Zach Cunningham. So some significant injuries. And as we mentioned, Ringo starting his first game as a pro. It's going to be Sua Opeta. And Shaq Leonard is going to start his first game as an Eagle. So a lot of uncertainty in this game that goes far beyond what the heck Matt Patricia is going to do and what magic fix the Eagles think they have on defense.
And, John, Seattle, obviously a tough place to play. We all know about the 12th man. Philadelphia Eagles haven't played well in Seattle, haven't won there in 15 years. You mentioned no Cam Jurgens tonight. Well, one of the things that the Eagles do is they utilize Cam Jurgens in their silent count, which they're probably going to need a lot of tonight in a really loud stadium. Any issues there with Sua Opeta being the guy that's going to have to institute the silent count?
Well, you always have a problem in Seattle, but that's the reason he's starting, to be honest, because of the silent count, and they have more confidence in him than, say, Tyler Steen as a young player. The Eagles always use the right guard no matter what for silent counts, so it'll be Sua Opeta handling that role, and they feel more comfortable with him doing it. That's a big reason why he's starting this game. If you remember, he had lost his job when Cam was hurt the first time to Tyler Steen. But this time when Cam got hurt again, they go back to Sua Opeta for that exact reason. I'm not sure it would be Sua Opeta if this game were in Philadelphia. I'd probably lean to it being more Tyler Steen.
So I was going to ask you that, John. You feel like because of the silent count, that's why they're going with Sua Opeta? Because I know Sua Opeta struggled a little bit. And the one game where Steen had to come in and play, I thought he actually played some pretty darn good football. So I'm actually shocked to see that he's the guy opposed to Steen. So if it's really all about, is it really all about the silent count?
100%, man. Okay. 100%. They feel way more comfortable with Sua handling that. And remember, this is probably, if not the loudest outdoor environment in the NFL, it's probably number 2 to Arrowhead. So really difficult place to play for the opposition. A lot of pre-snap penalties all over the place for visiting teams. And they just feel more comfortable with Sua Opeta. And that's not to say the Eagles won't have an issue or two, but they think they'll be lessened with Sua Opeta in there.
Yeah, I can definitely vouch for that place being loud, and not just for an outdoor stadium, but even in comparison to the Superdome in New Orleans. It's the only place my feet have ever shaken walking across the field right before kickoff. It really is incredible.
Quake. Yeah, remember the Marshawn Lynch one. Yeah.
Of course, yeah, the Beastquake, of course. Although I do think the 12th man is the corniest promotion in the history of sports. But anyway, we'll get to that another day. John, when it comes to your final prediction for this game leading up to kickoff, what are you expecting for Eagles at Seattle tonight?
Boy, I think in a lot of ways it's baked in, and the one part of the Eagles' plan here that might be a little bit underrated, brilliant, is the Eagles are going to get better on defense in the final month, and it has nothing to do with Matt Patricia, nothing to do with Sean Desai and everything to do with the schedule and playing Tommy Cutlets twice and playing the Arizona Cardinals and playing the Seattle team. The schedule just gets easier, so that's baked in. They're going to get a little bit better. There's so much uncertainty in this game. I felt pretty comfortable on Friday saying, well, the Eagles are going to win, and then Jaylen Hurts got sick, and Darius Slay had surgery, and the Eagles fired their defensive coordinator, demoted, but no matter what they say, make no mistake about it, Sean Desai has no power any longer on the defensive side of the football. So a lot of uncertainty, but Seattle has just as many problems, starting with Geno's injury. They're bad defensively. They have the bad offensive line, which is sort of an evergreen comment about the Seattle Seahawks. They can never fix their offensive line issues. They have great receivers, but that's not enough. The Eagles have to win this game, and I think they're going to win it relatively easy. I think 33-20 Eagles.
Wow, I love that.
I don't think Sean Desai ever had any power. That's just my
Well, he had more than he has today, Seth.
Fair enough.
I'll tell you that.
John, real quick, before I let you go, just real quick, 30 seconds or less, is Darius Slay not playing right now more so the fact that Matt Patricia chose to have the surgery now because Matt Patricia is taking over?
No, he was banged up dating back to the Jets game, probably even before that. He's been playing through this for a while, and he went as far as he could take it. They didn't think he was going to be able to play against the Cowboys. He fought through it. I understand why people say that, but no. Those two quashed the issue. They'll be fine when Slay gets back, but no, nothing to do with it.
Fair enough. John, look forward to catching up with you at halftime and then on the post-game show and then throughout the week with Birds 365. John McMullen, our NFL Insider, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It is a fun rumor, though, just to talk about, Darius Slay not liking
even more important, look at quarterback one warming up.
Is he slinging it?
Oh, he's
slinging it?
I'm trying to tell you, he gonna light it up tonight.
You see him sniffling at all?
I'm gonna have to change my prediction.
Oh, spicy meatball there, Seth. Spicy meatball. When we come back, we're going to break it down a little further, what this offense could do tonight, and also one storyline we haven't talked enough about. It's what you need to see from this defensive line in a game like tonight, especially when you have a rookie corner getting his first start under his belt tonight in Seattle. We'll be back here in the Malamut Law pregame show in a few.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Eat chicken wings, buy Hooters things. Christmas is near, shop, have a beer. Christmas shopping shouldn't be hard. Give your friends a Hooters gift card.
This year, stuff their stockings and yours too with a one-size-fits-all gift card. Buy a $25 Hooters gift card and receive a $5 Santa's bonus card. Make it Hooters for the holidays.
Eat chicken wings, buy Hooters things. Christmas is near, gift cards are here. Good at Hooters everywhere now. Hooters gifts are always favored.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back to the Gallery Bar Booking Games here at Ocean Casino in Atlantic City. It is the Malamut Law Eagles pregame show, taking you into Eagles and Seahawks kicking off in Seattle. One of the things that has been one of the great stars of the show for the Eagles this season, and even dating back to last year, has been the way this defensive line has been able to get after opposing quarterbacks. Hassan Reddick, since he has gotten that cast off his hand, has been a totally different player, the player that we have seen for the vast majority of his career in the NFL. Josh Sweat spoke at length after the Dallas Cowboys game about how he's just not used to getting home. Some people drawing conclusions that had a big hat tip to the front office as far as why this defense wasn't getting home. Maybe it was more of the reason with Sean Desai. So when you look at this defensive line, gentlemen, and you look at the fact that you have a banged-up linebacking core, you have a banged-up secondary right now, whatever you want to make of Darius Slay, he's been your best corner all season, and he's not playing in tonight's game. And now you still look at a guy like Kevin Byard trying to pick it up as a free safety. You have a guy like Reed Blankenship coming off the concussion. You need your defensive line to step up in a major way for the rest of the season and into the postseason. Seth, who is someone you're looking at on that defensive line to really bring it in this game tonight against Seattle?
Well, I'm not looking for any player in particular. I'm going to tell you this. You know, the two guys on the outside, they rush their behinds off. You know, you can't get sacks on the outside if you don't get pushed in the middle. You know, so I need to see Matt Patricia come up with some line stunts on the inside to get these guys freed up. Because if you go max protection and you're okay with, you know, your back and your tight end blocking one of your defensive ends, that means that you can double up the two guys on the inside, okay? So you got to do some things different. Listen, it's like when you have undersized defensive linemen. If you leave them there as sitting ducks, they're easy to block because everybody else is bigger than they are, okay? So what do you do when you have undersized guys that are quicker than the big guys? You move them, you stun them, you slant them. You know, you do all of these different things. You loop them. You do different things to confuse the blocking scheme. These are some of the things that I need to see them do from a defensive standpoint because, listen, I know that Jordan Davis is big enough to dominate one guy if he's trying to block him. I know that Jalen Carter can dominate, you know, a single block. And I know that Fletcher Cox, when he's playing at top level, he still can get it done. But you can't ask these guys to just straight up beat people one-on-one all the time. You've got to do something different to mess with protections and to cause confusion in your fronts. You know, on my show last week, I broke down a blitz that they can run out of 4-man and a blitz that they can run out of 5-man, okay? Didn't take a whole lot of creativity. I got 10,000 of those things in my head, you know. But certain, you know, if you want to send 5, you just can't send 5 man up and send a linebacker to try to beat, you know, a center. You know, show me some stunts. Bring some secondary guys, you know, that you're sugaring from over here, and you bring, you know, you got the linebacker stepped up, and now they've adjusted their protection to account for the linebacker in the mix. Now you drop that linebacker out and bring a slot guy from this side. Show me some stuff that I haven't seen. Show the opposing teams some things that they haven't seen to be able to free your guys up and not have to require them to win one-on-one battles all game. Now, they're going to have to win some battles. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can scheme sometimes. I see everybody else doing it. You look up and you see a guy running at the quarterback scot-free. How come everybody else can do that but we can't?
Yeah, just look at the Baltimore Ravens defense. I was watching that game last night against the Jaguars. You don't know who's coming, who's dropping in the coverage. They got everybody confused. And this is also why I want to see these corners get up to the line of scrimmage. We say it almost every single week. Give your defensive line some time to get there. because we've seen what these opposing quarterbacks are trying to do. They're trying to get rid of the ball very, very quickly because they know the strength of this defense is along that defensive line. Give them a chance to get there. Don't let these quarterbacks get rid of the ball so quickly. So that's why I want to see the corners get up, get physical with these wide receivers. Don't allow them to get a clean release. Make Geno Smith or Drew Lock, I think it's going to be Geno Smith, they said, but make Geno Smith hold that ball for an extra second, even a half a second, and these guys will get there. They are good enough on the edge.
Real quick update on that situation. Brady Henderson, Seahawks beat reporter for ESPN, is putting it out there right now saying that the Seahawks are going through stretches on the field and they don't see Geno Smith in uniform anywhere. This is just a few minutes ago. It was only Drew Lock and Sean Mannion, who was just activated today off the practice squad, elevated off the practice squad, going through warm-up. So we'll see what goes on. I haven't seen him in the brief glimpses I'm able to see of the warm-ups. I have not seen Geno Smith out there just yet. Seth, go ahead.
So defensive football is about dominance, but it's also about deception too, and how you can make things look one way when they're absolutely a different way, because you can't dominate all the time. It's just the game of football just doesn't work that way. You can have the best front in the National Football League, and you're always gonna have that game, or you're always gonna have those situations in games where the pass rush doesn't get there, where the dominance isn't there. That's where, great creativity and great coordination allows you to change some things up and give your guys a break. Run some TE stunts, some TNT stunts in the middle, with your tackles, and some ETs on the end and some TEs on the end, so that you can get guys picked and get somebody running free, to disrupt these passes. But to just ask these guys to just straight up rush every single time, you can't win like that all the time. I don't care how dominant you are.
And they have the personnel to do that.
Absolutely do.
Without question. Now, here's something else, looking at this game. The term press coverage, ever since it was announced, I've seen it kind of come up here on social media, people asking, will Matt Patricia be doing more of this? I would have to lean on the side of no, you're not going to see that type of aggression from him on the outside. And my only reason for that is, if you look at the defensive coordinators that the Eagles have had, whether it's Jim Schwartz, whether it's Jonathan Gannon, whether it's most recently Sean Desai, and now Matt Patricia, that seems to be something that this front office and analytics department is against. They don't want to see that type of aggression, jam coverage on the outside. They don't want to see that kind of thing on the outside here, lining up against wide receivers or whoever's in the slot. So do you think, Bill, I know it's something you both wanted to see from Matt Patricia going into this game. That, to me, would be a glaringly obvious thing that's done differently with this Eagles defense, if that's something that Matt Patricia is going to bring to the table. I want to see it. I'm rooting for it, but I'm not betting on it that we see it tonight. Do you expect to see it?
Well, and I also don't think it just comes from the front office. I do think it's Nick Sirianni's mentality that big plays win football games, and he tries to eliminate the big play. But my argument to that would be you obviously made a change away from Sean Desai because what you are doing isn't working. So you have a guy like Matt Patricia who had a lot of success when he was in New England. He's obviously a multiple Super Bowl winner. If you're going to make him your defensive coordinator, let the guy call the damn defense. Let him call the defense that he wants to call. So I am hopeful that they're going to change some things up because it's not working. Last year, when they ran it with Jonathan Gannon, they had the best pass defense in the entire NFL. So I know we all got frustrated and it came back to haunt us in the Super Bowl, but what they were doing was working in some respects. Number one pass defense. They're 28th in the NFL this year. So it's not working. So that's why I want to see them let Matt Patricia call the defense he wants to call, and that's why I'm hopeful we'll see some more press coverage tonight.
Do you think we'll actually see it, Seth?
Well, listen, there's a time and place for everything. I think that people get the idea that when you start talking press coverage, that you're talking about living in press coverage. Our cornerbacks really don't press. Press coverage is really, if I'm going to get up in your face, I'm going to put my hands on you. I'm going to take my one shot at you, okay? They get up and press, but, wide receivers know that they're not going to take that shot. So they stutter to get them to open their hips, and then once they get their hips open, now as they're running vertically, the defensive back has his hips horizontal to the line of scrimmage. That doesn't work. If you're going to jam somebody, get up, have good footwork, mirror them, get your hand on them, and force them the way that you want to go. And I'm not saying that they have to play like that all the time, but there has to be sometimes in the game where you make the decision that we're going to be more aggressive at the line of scrimmage. that we're going to jam wide receivers and try to break down and slow down the flow and the rhythm of the offense because you throw them off timing. If you're not going to do that, then this defense isn't going to look any different to me than it's looked, through 14 weeks.
No, I'm certainly with you there. Now, on the offensive side of things, our friend Jeff Kerr at CBS Sports put out a really interesting tidbit here moments ago on social media about the Seahawks and how they run a lot of zone coverage, more than any team in the NFL. 83% of the time they're running zone coverage. So in this particular matchup, it's something that Jaylen Hurts has done phenomenally well this season, a top 10 quarterback when facing zone coverage. 92.6 passer rating, 9th best in the NFL when facing zone coverage tonight. Not to mention 283 rushing yards at 5.3 yards per carry. Not too bad for Jaylen Hurts today. If I have a request of this entire Eagles team tonight, it's to look like a 10-3 football team because they have not looked like a 10-2, 10-1 football team over the course of the last couple of games here. But I have a request of Jaylen Hurts as well, is to be a huge part, flu or not, be a huge part of the solution like I believe he can be. And he is facing a defense tonight that is far from the San Francisco 49ers. It's far from the Cowboys the way the Cowboys have played the vast majority of the season until they went up against the Buffalo Bills. Play like the quarterback that we know he could be tonight. And going up against this type of defense that is a bottom-tier defense, yes, much like the Eagles, but the Eagles defense is going to be going up against a quarterback right now in Drew Lock, it looks like. And the Eagles offense is going to be going up right now against a defense that is one of the worst in the NFL statistically speaking and have consistently given up points. If I'm looking at Jaylen Hurts tonight, it's due to the things that have made this offense great over the last 2 years, the vast majority of the last 2 seasons. Don't be afraid to throw that slant route again. We saw the numbers earlier in the week, how successful they have been when they have run that slant pattern, especially to A.J. Brown. Let's see that again. And I would love, if I could fish a wish for tonight's game, it would be that Jaylen Hurts on the first play of the game is to have a little dump-off play to DeAndre Swift in the flat. Not necessarily, doesn't have to be a screen, maybe crazy. Make it a wheel route for something big, 20 yards or something like that. Get everybody involved, and I think the Eagles will ride it to a victory tonight if they can get everybody involved offensively speaking. We haven't seen that for a long time.
I think if they're going to be primarily a zone team, then Jaylen has to get to a point, where he's willing to take what the defense is giving you. Okay, and I'd like to see them scheme some things in a way that allows him to be a little more successful, like run some, flood some zones. If you're going to drop the safety in the box, they have to take care of the run, and you're going to play cover 3 behind it, where you're going to drop and all, you got 4 underneath and 3 deep, then flood the zone. Flood the zone and run everybody off in that zone and let the third guy in the zone just dump it off to him and let him do what he does, okay? There are ways to beat zone coverage, but the offensive line has got to protect, and he's got to feel like he can stand in that pocket and let things develop, and call those plays that take advantages of the holes in the defense, instead of trying to push the ball down the field. I call it greedy offense. This is the type of offense that the Eagles play a lot of. They play a lot of greedy offense because they want passes that are 10-plus yards down the field, and they don't want to take, the obvious passes. They don't want to take the 5 yards, the 4-yard dump-offs, okay? Those are good on first down. Now you're in 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4 situations. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're so hell-bent on trying to push the ball down the field without having earned the right to push it down the field that they get themselves into trouble. There's nothing wrong with moving the sticks and moving the sticks and moving the sticks and getting to a point where you're either scoring or you're kicking a field goal. You're scoring or you're kicking a field goal. But we'd rather push the ball down the field and force situations that aren't there because teams know that that's what we want to do. So they're not going to let you have that. You got to make them change their defense in order for you to get to what you want to get to offensively. And if they'll do that, if they'll just take what's in front of them and they'll run the football, this game should be over at halftime, in my opinion. It really should. It really should.
And we heard a horrifying word from our friend Derek Gunn after last week's loss to the Dallas Cowboys. Predictable. You know when's a bad time to be predictable? When you're about to face a team that you faced 3 times in the previous season in the New York Giants. You know when's a bad time to be predictable? When you're facing your former defensive coordinator in Jonathan Gannon. That's a bad time to be predictable, so tonight would be a good night to maybe be a little unpredictable. Speaking of predictions, we're going to get to that in just one second, but just further on Drew Lock, it does appear that he is going to be the starter tonight. He got every first-team rep on the field during warm-up, so it looks like he will be the starter tonight. Getting this from about 9 minutes ago, just before 35 minutes before kickoff, team still has not seen Geno Smith on the team. So we'll see what direction the Seahawks go. Looking like it could be Drew Lock under center. It don't matter. This defense gonna eat.
It don't matter because the Eagles can't worry themselves with who's going to play quarterback. The Seattle Seahawks are going to come out and try to establish the run. That's what they're going to do. So this comes down to the defense and the defensive line making up their minds that they're going to dominate and stop the run game. Okay, and put this ball in either Geno Smith's hands, who, in my opinion, who's fooled the Seattle Seahawks into believing that he could be, a franchise quarterback.
Comeback player of the year, Seth.
Or a Drew Lock, a guy who's still trying to figure out whether he can be a starting guy in the NFL. Put the pressure and put the onus on those players to win the game. Do not let Carbonet and Walker get this game going to the point where they're ripping off runs and they're going play action passes, and now you got hell on your hands. Take care of what you need to take care of. Stop the run to begin with. Make them one-dimensional and force these two quarterbacks, whoever it is on the field, to beat you, and they can't do it.
So you expect them to be in a lot more five-man fronts to start the game on defense?
Well, I think that ideally they want to get the pass game under control. And anytime they're in the five-man front, it puts them at a deficit. It puts them at a deficit, as far as the pass game is concerned. And lately, teams have been able to run the ball on the 4 or the 5-man front. I get the sense that tonight, they're going to go 4-man a lot more than, they really want to. And, they're going to challenge the linebackers and the defensive line to get it under control. And if you're going to drop the extra guy in the box from time to time and play some zone behind it, count on that guy fitting where he's supposed to fit and get up in there early and get this run game under control.
And you mentioned the linebackers. We didn't really talk about it that much. But that's probably what I'm most excited to see tonight, because when we look at this defensive side of the football, there's not going to be any changes to the personnel, really, but we do have Shaq Leonard. We didn't see him much last week. He's probably going to play a lot tonight.
14 snaps last week.
And that's what I want to see is, does this guy have anything left? He's going to probably look good tonight against Drew Lock and the Seattle offense, but that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. What does Shaq Leonard have left?
All right, let's get your prediction, Bill. What are you predicting for Eagles Seahawks tonight? So far, we have Adam Malamut 28-7. Then we have Johnny McMullen 33-20. What say you, Bill Colarulo?
So I said today on my show that anyone that told you they knew what was going to happen tonight was either an idiot or a liar, because we didn't even know if Hurts was going to play. We didn't know if Geno Smith was going to play, so I didn't make a prediction like I always do. But now that we know it's Drew Lock versus Jaylen Hurts, I think the Eagles should win this game handedly, and if they don't, I'm going to be losing my mind up here on the postgame show. They should win this game 31-14, and it shouldn't even be close. They better score more than 7 points in the first half, because it's been 4 games in a row now with 7 or less points. They better come out to a hot start. That defense better stop the run, and we better see an offense firing on all cylinders against a really bad Seahawks team. 31-14 Eagles.
I'm making a minor adjustment as well. I had it at 31-27 in favor of the Seattle Seahawks now, or excuse me, in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. Not that much of a drastic change. And now I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning this game by a score of 34-20. I think they feel comfortable about this win, and we all feel better going forward with one step closer to clinching the NFC East. Seth, what say you about tonight's game?
On my show this week, I always end my show with a prediction for the upcoming game. Still seething after, being demolished by the Dallas Cowboys and seeing no real proof of improvement in sight. I actually picked the Eagles to lose this game 17-21. But as the week has gone on and looking at the fact that Drew Lock is playing, looking at the fact that, the Cowboys lost yesterday and put the Eagles back in the driver's seat for the 2 seed at this moment, this is a game that if the Eagles don't come out with some fight in them, and I mean some fire, fire-breathing young dragons, if they don't come out with that this week, then it's probably likely that they're not going to be able to turn it around. So I'm going to go against what I originally said. And, with Jaylen Hurts being sick, I think he's going to have a game of games tonight. I'm going with the Eagles 28-14.
28-14, Seth Joyner. I like it. We're all feeling pretty comfortable and confident now heading into kickoff in Seattle, which is just about to get underway at 8:15 tonight with the Eagles taking on the Seahawks. Thanks for watching the Malamut Law pregame show. We'll be along with the halftime show, Bill Colarulo and I, as well as Kayla Santiago and John McMullen. And then after that, it's the Pond Lahaki postgame show with Mike Missinelli sitting in as well. Until then, go Birds.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Eat chicken wings, buy Hooters things. Christmas is near, shop, have a beer. Christmas shopping shouldn't be hard. Give your friends a Hooters gift card.
This year, stuff their stockings and yours too with a one-size-fits-all gift card. Buy a $25 Hooters gift card and receive a $5 Santa's bonus card. Make it Hooters for the holidays.
Eat chicken wings, buy Hooters things. Christmas is near, gift cards are here. Good at Hooters everywhere now. Hooters gifts are always favored.
They're carving them up, and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
EAGLES, Eagles.